world where achievements and accolades motivate us to do more and be more, we're often left wondering, is this really it?
Deep inside, you know there is more to life. You're ready to leave behind the old, push your way through, and claim the deeper life that's calling you.
That's where we excel.
We're your hosts, Stephanie Allen
and Maren Oslak.
And this is the Soulful Leader Podcast.
Sit back and relax as we share the shortcuts we've uncovered to help you make shift happen. Welcome back to the Soulful Leader Podcast and Happy New Year. We are so excited to be here with you on this really second day of this new year of ours, 2024. And Stephanie and I were thinking about goal setting, as I'm sure that many people are out there thinking right now, goal setting and making a plan for 2024. And we look at it a little bit differently than most people do from, I want to say, a higher perspective. And it's a different perspective. It's a more encompassing perspective. So Stephanie, I'm going to use a couple words. I'm going to say an integral perspective. And when I say looking at goal setting from an integral, that's easy for me to say, right? An integral perspective. What comes to mind for you? How would you explain that?
Well, first of all, the word like integral is like inside yourself. It's like you've made it part of you. And so whatever it is that you're seeking outside is also inside of you, but they can sometimes seem very, very separate. So when we can become connected or we can integrate it, that word has always, baffled me too for many years. Is like, what does integration mean? We talk about work-life balance, and, I am one person when I go to work and I'm a different person when I come home. And that's not integrated.
No.
That's very separate. It's very binary. You're different with different people or
it's a
any of those parts.
temporary, yeah, for me, that type of thing it's a temporary solution for a problem, and it's not long term. It creates its own problem. So like you said, it's separation instead of integration.
Yeah, and when we're talking to different people out in the world, you may find that there's some people that you just feel, oh my God, what universe do you live in? Like we're just not even coming on the same level. And when you can be in an integral relationship, you can then have space to see where that person is coming from. Instead of making them right or wrong or good or bad, you go like, well, I can understand why you see or think or feel that way because I'm standing in your shoes.
So it's beyond judgment. It's also beyond acceptance.
Oh, absolutely. Because I think there's a lot of that of like, we're trying to be inclusive right now with everything. And in doing so, we're not honoring the uniqueness or the differentiations between individuals because that's important too. And I call it this integral would be like the both and. It's like, we are both alike and we're also unique in our own ways. And there's space for both of those to happen. And we can understand through different shifting over to see someone's perspective so that you can find a new place to integrate or to make whole a whole new relationship. You see this a lot of times in couples. One couple says, I want this, and the other one says, well, I don't want that. I want something different over here. And we battle it out between who's right or who's wrong. And the one who's the most rigid tends to take on the control because they're the most rigid. And so the person who's the most flexible ends up kind of cowering, going, okay, fine. I'd rather just keep the peace and I'll go along with you. But that's not integral. That's not transcending and including both of our uniqueness and our differences and bringing it into a whole new world. So that, to me, that's what would be integral.
And so when we think about that, I love your analogy there because that's perfect for going into a goal setting and planning our new year. Oftentimes, what I've found for myself when I'm not coming from that integral place and I'm actually coming from, I think that like a flatland place of that's my goal. I have to achieve it. all stops, all pull, like you like to say, head down, butt up, go, go,
I
go,
was just
right?
gonna say that, yeah. Just run over everything, plow through it, make it happen at all costs, including
Right.
to yourself and to others.
And there will be a cost. Yeah.
Mhm,
And so the integral, looking at that from that next space of when you were talking about when you're in a relationship, instead of the command and control version,
mhm.
getting to a higher place where maybe it's not A or B, there's some sort of a let instead of a compromise between the two, there's a place that integrates both of those, and
Yeah.
then there can be more that comes out of it.
And
So
that's the
take
unknown. That's holding space for the
Yeah,
unknown, for what wants to happen. But you don't just hold space for it, you actually have to stay present to it as well. So you
yeah,
actually have to plan to stay present to that space and have a practice of coming together. So when whether this is in relationship, in the way of a romantic relationship, or a parent child relationship, or a work relationship, it's like you might have certain goals or ideals that you want to have happen, and you're kind of like head down, butt up, keep going. And the team or the person you're in relationship with has a completely different view. And we tend to, like I said, we tend to try to make the other person wrong so that we can be right, because then we feel safe. And that just creates separation versus saying, okay, I know I want this, you want that. This is why I think this is really important too, is to ask yourself, why do I want that goal? And ask the person you're in relationship with why they're choosing to do that. That's helps you see from their perspective, because they may be seeing a blind spot that that's why it's called a blind spot, right? They're seeing an area within you that you don't see, or something, or you're being able to discover a different perspective. And then being able to say, okay, maybe my ego and your ego, because that's really what it comes from. My ego and your are really attached in the way this is going to be. Can we hold space for what wants to happen?
mm.
So I surrender my personal figuring it, fixing it, forcing it to happen. And I'm asking the other person to also surrender their fixing, forcing, and figuring it. And that we stay together in the conversation, which is, by the way, conflict. This is called conflict. We stay together in the conversation to hold space for what wants to manifest, what wants to happen. And often, what we end up doing is we create drama. This is what happens, drama, and then it dissipates and it pushes everything away. And even the good things in our life, it pushes it away
Right.
instead of becoming more integral, of like connecting with something, like trying to understand something, coming together. And, I being in Canada, we tend to say sorry a lot. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Because we just want to keep the peace. It's okay. We tend to try to be overly flexible. And what happens is that many different populations, we're trying to include everybody, but nobody's getting included, including ourselves. And there's another next level to go up onto that. And that takes letting go of the current one that we're on. And that's moving into the unknown. And that can be really scary. It's always scary. It's always scary when we've gone to a place that we haven't been there before, because we don't know what to expect.
So I want to go back to when you were talking about conflict and drama and apply that to goal setting. And I know that sounds strange.
That's perfect.
But I think that that's really the flatland version of goal setting, being that I have a goal, I'm going after it, head down, butt up, all, it's like
Mhm.
what's going to happen is when we set a goal or have an intention, everything that's not that is going to come up and get in our way.
100%. Anything you say yes to, all the no's of why you shouldn't or couldn't or wouldn't have it are going to come up. There's your conflict right there.
There's your conflict. And then each of those barriers to your goal becomes a conflict and a drama. And our traditional way is push through it, muscle through it, go, go, go.
Oh, you say pull up your
And
big girl panties, suck
yeah,
it up,
well,
buttercup. Like we have all these things that we tell ourselves to, and it's not about running away and sticking your hole in, your head in a hole somewhere. It's like,
right.
or going into your little cubby hole or something like that. It's how do I stay present to the uncomfortability without dramatizing it? That's the key.
And
It's
this
like
is
just
where,
holding presence. Mhm.
right. So this is where the integral version for me of goal setting comes into place, because I loved what you said is it's not about it. There tends to be this, I either go full out all in, or I go, it's just gonna happen or it's not gonna happen. I don't
Yeah,
know. I'm just
exactly. If
gonna
it's up to
wait.
yeah.
So again, it's
True.
not an either or. It's kind of this both and place. And how do we integrate those two so that we can hold space, create an intention, and hold a goal,
Mhm.
and also hold that space. I love you said it so beautifully earlier of holding the space for the conflict. You called it conversation, which is a beautiful word for it, because it is when we're in conflict, either within ourselves or with another being, there is a conversation that's happening. And how do we want to be in that conversation? Is it an I'm right, you're wrong, or you're right, I'm wrong?
Yeah.
Or is it a, let's stay present and see what wants to happen?
I think this is a real key thing because it takes both parties, both individuals to stay present and letting go of who's right and who's wrong, what's good and what's bad. You have to let that go and just say, and to remind yourself that this is the inner narrative part of like, I always have to be the one that, powers to their responses, or I always have to be the one that does all the planning, or I always have to be, we kind of get really tight and want to fight, or we go back and we just, oh, we just poor
Give
me's,
up. Poor
or
me.
we get frozen. We get frozen with
Right.
fear of like, I don't know what to do and I'm immobilized. And if we can transcend all three of those, and there's other forms of that, of course, too, but it's like if we can transcend all of those and just say, what what needs to happen so that we can stay present together with this? You both have to be willing, or the two parties have got to stay willing to say, I'm willing to let go of my ego. I'm willing to let go of my identity because I know there's something that wants to happen, but it's not going to happen if I don't pay attention. If I just distract myself and go over here and do something else, it's I'm not putting my attention on the intention to grow and evolve and find a new possibility that actually may completely transform me. And when I look back, I'll be like, hell yes, that was the best thing that ever happened. Because that's what conflicts does. Conflict, and whether we look at that in the way in the outer world between relationships or within ourselves in the way of health, I call it a healing crisis.
Or
People
between you and your goal.
exactly, or between you
Right.
and well, no matter what it is, whether we call it a healing crisis, because what's happening is transformation is happening. In order for you to reach that new state of goal that you've set for yourself, you cannot stay who you are. And I'll say that again because I can get really attached to being who I am. In order for you to achieve, we'll use that word, or to reach that ideal state, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to have to change inside yourself. So you cannot stay who you are now to be able to step into who you want to become. You have to let it go. And that's going to be the conflict to get there.
Yeah. I love that. And, with that ideal state, whether it's an ideal state within a relationship, whether it's an ideal state of moving up in a company, whether it's an ideal state of a healing, I want to be
Mhm.
more healthy, whatever that ideal state is, it cannot, you can't stay the same person and achieve that ideal state is so true. And there will be conflict in that process. And
Absolutely.
our traditional way of goal setting is, like I said, to plow through that instead of being present to it. And so I just heard this the other day and I absolutely loved it, where a gentleman was talking about looking at goals differently. And instead of looking at the goal for what he would then achieve out there, like being able to pat himself on the back of, I ran the marathon or whatever it was, I achieved the next level in my business, etc. It was, what is it going by having this outer goal? What will that develop and change in me? And this is speaking to what you were just saying of that's the inner development. That's why there are goals in the first place, which we're not taught. We're taught that the goal is there to achieve,
Yeah,
not that it's to evolve who we are. And so having that presence of, oh, the whole point of it, the integral version of the whole point of a goal is, who
to
am
change
I
us.
going to become? Exactly.
Yeah, because otherwise we end up achieving the goal and going, "Ugh, why do I feel so empty? Why do I,
Next,
yeah, next, now what?
next.
Well, I
Now
guess
what?
I checked that box. And
Right.
it's so unfulfilling.
It
But
is.
if I said to any of you or were listening, or to you, Maren, like who you were 10 years ago, are you the same person then that you are now? Like, I really
No.
hope not. Right. I mean, I could say that for myself even 3 months ago. I am different. And we've kind of taken this whole movement of personal growth and self development and we've applied it to the achievement thing instead
Mhm.
of looking at the inner sanctuary, the internal narrative. Like, 10 years ago, I did not have the space inside my heart or my awareness to know who I am or what. Now, if you talk to me 10 years ago, it's, oh, yes, I know who I am. I know what I want. I'd be, yeah, whatever. And, but it's evolved, it's changed. Like, I wouldn't even recognize the self I have become now. I really wouldn't have, and it's a good thing. Like, I mean, it happens slowly, gradually, and my gosh, it's painful when we think we have a goal and it's painful
Yeah.
to go slow, but that's actually the remedy. Is because when you go slow and you go deep, and we've done podcasts on that, but the benefits of being a slow learner is like how it myelinates our brain totally different. It rewires us so that we actually create a very gentle way of moving into a whole new state of being. And then it's lasting. It doesn't it we talk about resiliency, the ability to bounce back. I don't necessarily see resiliency as that.
No.
To
We've
me,
talked about that
yeah, and
too.
we've talked about that too. It's to me, resiliency is really not about adapting, but about evolving so that you become the being that wouldn't even be shaken by that. You'd have space in your heart and love for yourself and love for whatever's going on. It's a completely different space.
Yeah. So as we move into this 2024 and we have a, a blank slate in front of us, one of the things that I would encourage everyone to do is to take a look at your goals from a development perspective of, what will this develop in me?
Mhm.
And notice the space that that creates around the goal itself, and the compassion that it creates in that need and that push to make it happen. When you look at it from that bigger perspective of, there's more to this than just achieving X, Y, or Z. It's
Mhm.
about developing me. And now it's this much richer, much more exciting, at least for me. It just makes it much more fulfilling. And that's a great word. I let you use that
And
earlier.
joyful, and
And
joyful.
joyful.
Like, when we talk about conflict, it doesn't have to be dramatic, and the difference
It
being is
doesn't.
drama is literally we've talked about this one too, about really eliciting those inner drugs inside yourself so that you get a high. Instead of conflict is being still, being stationary, being present to the uncomfortability without fixing, forcing, or changing it, but
Yeah.
being with what is, and being with another, maybe another group of people or another person or another, whatever system or whatever, that is also willing to be present with you, because that's going to create what they would call alchemy, which is changing lead into gold. And that is the transformation. And that's what we're talking about integral, is the transformational and the integration of both and.
Love that. So 2024 is going to be our alchemical year. Very
I
nice.
love it.
So don't forget that I will link all of the podcasts that we mentioned today and anything else in our show notes. So you can head over there and get that, so you don't have to take notes on that. And you can find us on LinkedIn and on Facebook under the Soulful Leaders, and also on YouTube if you wanted to watch us while we're talking to you. And we will continue with you next week on the Soulful Leader podcast. Thanks for joining us.
And that wraps up another episode of the Soulful Leader podcast with your hosts, Stephanie Allen
and Maren Oslack. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to dive deeper, head over to our website at thesoulfulleaderpodcast.com.
Until next time.